So we've been talking about using or the process of growing growing fruits and vegetables and so on, grain, and the melachot of Shabbat that are surrounded that. And we talked about plowing the field and planting seeds and cutting things down. And now we see there's an area of halacha that is a little strange, but actually impact us, which is because we don't want to break a branch or take an item off a tree, we have to be careful around trees, which, that's something that does impact. We are around trees, especially if we are not in Brooklyn, if we're in Deal. So trees are everywhere, right? And we'll use those trees. So we've been talking about different things, and basically the big leniency is if you're not using the tree, but you're using something attached to the tree, that's okay, right? So we said like a hammock or something that might be hanging off the tree, especially if it's hanging indirectly, meaning if there's a screw in the tree and then this is hanging on the screw, then that will be fine. So that's a big leniency that we have, but there's still plenty of situations where that's not the case. So we're going to keep going on those types of laws. So he says like this: Mutar lahariach befrachim bahadasim av kashem b'chubanim l'karka. Says you're allowed to smell the flowers. Right? You're allowed to bend over and smell, whether it be myrtle branches or fragrant flowers, no problem. And he says, and you could even, amazingly, given all that we've said, grab them and bring them to your nose and smell them that way. Aval etrogim v'tapuchim u'sh'ar perot haruim la'achila asur l'hariach bahem be'odam mechubarim l'karka af im lo tafsam biado gezerah shemay yitlosh mehem kedei lochlam. Says all that is a flower or a branch. It says, but not a fruit. So what's a very fine smelling fruit? We're all familiar with an etrog. Right? The etrog smells beautiful. If you're walking in an etrog orchard and you want to smell the etrog, so you want to walk over to it and hold the etrog close to your nose, you're not allowed. You're not even allowed. Not only not allowed to bring it close to your nose, you're not allowed to bring your nose close to it, because the concern is that once you do, you're gonna lose your head. You'll quickly pull something off because you'll be enjoying the beauty of the smell. You're not going to be thinking about, oh, it's Shabbat, I can't take anything off the tree, and you'll come to take something off the tree. So the Chachamim made a rule: etrogim or other fine smelling fruits, if they're attached to a tree, you may not smell them on Shabbat. Okay, a halacha that's significant today is Birkat HaIlanot. We just finished the month of Nisan, where there's a halacha that if during the month of Nisan you go out into an orchard, a field, a place where there's trees growing around, and they're fruit trees, and it's the month of Nisan, so it's where they're first beginning to flower. So the halacha is that you make a beracha called Birkat HaIlanot. It's a beautiful beracha. We make it every year, right around the Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That's when we try and make it. It's a nice thing. By the way, it happens to be, I don't know if you saw this video, in Israel, because of the quarantine and because it would therefore be hard for people to get out and make Birkat HaIlanot. There was actually a video of a truck driving, a flatbed truck driving around with fruit trees in the back.
We had it here, down Avenue S.
I didn't see it here. Yeah,
it was going down around the neighborhood.
Ninth Street, so it wasn't such a big deal. But they had fruit trees driving around Israel, so you can make the beracha. Only Israel, right? Or Brooklyn, I guess.
Brooklyn, Israel.
Yeah, Brooklyn and Israel, maybe not as far apart as we think. So that's how. So that's the fruit trees. So are you allowed to make the beracha on Shabbat? Right, that's the question. It says mutar levarech birkat ilanot b'Shabbat. You're allowed to make the beracha birkat ilanot on Shabbat. Kashem shemutar lariach hadas mechubar b'Shabbat. Just like you're allowed to smell the branches of the hadas on Shabbat. And there's no concern that you're going to take something off the tree. We don't worry about that. It says makom makom. It says nevertheless the chatechila miyot tov yesh levarech b'mot chol. It says better to do the beracha on the weekday. V'rakim lo nizdamen lo levarech ela b'Shabbat hasmucha lechodesh Nisan. He says better to wait. Better to wait till the weekday. He says unless it's the end of the month of Nisan and it's Shabbat and you just realize that you didn't have an opportunity before. He says he says you may forget to make the beracha altogether. You may lose the beracha. He says so. Go make the beracha. On Shabbat make berkat ilanot. Okay. Mutar lalechet b'Shabbat al gabe asavim ben nachim ben yeveshim. I think we talked about this before, but we'll say it again. Right? We talked about the idea of you're not able to, and you shouldn't cut the lawn, mow the lawn, cut the grass, pluck the grass on Shabbat. So am I allowed to walk on the grass on Shabbat, knowing that when I walk on the grass, I might be uprooting certain grass? And remember what we said, even if you didn't intend to, but if you know you definitely will, then it's a problem, right? Like opening the refrigerator door. We've used that example a few times. He says, he says, but it doesn't matter. When you walk on the grass, he says, sometimes you uproot grass, but not always, not definitively. He says, since you're not trying to uproot them, and it's not definitive that they will become uprooted, it's allowed. He says, but if they're very tall, if it's a very tall grass, he says, perhaps it's a good idea to walk slowly, not so quickly, and not run there. He says, if you're going to run through tall grass, you can bet that the tall grass will be ripped out. So if you know that you're definitively ripping out the grass, then that could be a problem. Okay. Mutar liktom atzeh besamim tlushim kedeh latet ha'acherim la'ariach bahem v'davka kashekotem bayad aval besakin yesh le'esor. So this halacha is for Joe Mita, right? Let's say you have before Shabbat you cut off the branches from the myrtle tree, from the hadas tree. Right. And now you want to give out to people to smell the beautiful fragrance. And, you have 2-3 big branches, right? But if you could break them off, you could distribute to a lot of different people, right? So he says, if you cut the main branch off from before Shabbat, you're allowed to then, subcontract, I guess you call it, break off the small pieces into, break off from that branch and give to other people. It's not a problem. You're allowed to do that since it's from before Shabbat. It's already cut off. So that's something that they can do. He says, but if you're going to do it, you have to do it by hand. You can't do it with a tool, a knife, a scissors, a pruning, item, whatever tools that they use. That you can't do. So it has to be a little bit what you might call amateurish. Okay. Shimshiyat gina hatiku'a bekarka me'erev Shabbat. Yesh lahakel lefotcha l'sogra b'Shabbat. Yesh katav she'en lefotcha l'sogra b'Shabbat. I'm not sure why he brings this up again, because we've talked about this already. But he says if you have an umbrella in the garden, or I would say by the pool or something like that. So we talked about this. There's a concern of opening an umbrella that's completely closed and then going like this. You're creating an ohel. You're creating a tent, which we said was already building on Shabbat. So what's the solution? The solution is if the umbrella was just slightly open from before Shabbat, enough that the umbrella is opened by a tefach, then you're able to open it wide or close it. If it was open, you can close it, just not all the way. And as we said, this is true of an awning as well on Shabbat. If you have awnings, umbrellas, or outdoor things, you can open them provided they were just open just a little bit, or you can close them provided you don't close them all the way.
So Rabbi, just a regular rain umbrella, if it's open before Shabbat, can you use it?
No. These are all the things that I'm talking about are things that are in the ground. They're already there, but the rain umbrella has a different problem, and therefore rain umbrellas or the parasol that you would carry for the sun or something like that, umbrellas you carry are forbidden, no matter what.
Thank you.
So don't use umbrellas.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
Rabbi, for the hadas, is it possible on Shabbat to rub it and smell it, or you're
Yes.
not allowed
No
to rub
problem.
it?
No
No
problem.
problem?
Yes. Okay. So certainly it's no problem if it's already detached. But if it's attached to the tree still and you're rubbing it, you have to be careful not to actually pluck it off, right? So if by rubbing it you're going to pluck it off, and that is possible when you're rubbing the leaves. So I would say on that you'd have to be pretty careful. Rubbing the leaves that are connected to the tree on Shabbat, that already it's easy to see how it would get just straight to doing the melacha.
Be careful not to detach anything.
Yes, correct. Not just a branch, even a leaf. You can't.
The leaf,
right? Even the leaf. Okay. אסור לאדם לטייל בגינתו בשדה ובשבת כדי לבדוק את מצב הצמחים הגדלים שם, או כדי לדעת איזה מלאכה יצטרך לעשות למחרת היום. He says, let's say you have a very nice garden or orchard or fields, right? And some people, I know own vineyards in Israel. You're not allowed to walk in them on Shabbat, right? Why? Because that's like going to your office, right? What happens if you walk into your office, right? What do, right? You're going to pick up a paper, you're going to open up one of the books, you're going to turn on the computer, because that's what you do in your office, you work. So if you have a field that you work, right, meaning that you sell things from it, or you really put a lot of effort into it, if you're going to walk through the garden and you're going to start saying, even if you're not going to actually do anything that day, if you're going to walk through the garden and you say, we need to cut back that tree. It would be great if we planted another item over here. Oh, look, these fruits are starting to get ripe. Let me call the guy tomorrow to take it down, and so on and so forth. You're not allowed to walk in that garden. So the truth is, I don't know how many of us own gardens of that nature, but if we do, then we have to be careful not to do that. But most of us, that's not going to be a problem, right? So, for example, let's say someone, I don't know, if it's Shabbat afternoon or a holiday, and you're looking for a nice place to walk, and your neighbor has a beautiful, vineyard, garden, and something like that, for you to walk around it, through it, in it, no problem. It's when it's yours and it's going to lead you to start making what we'll call business type decisions, that's where it could be a problem. It says, and he says, so that's why, especially now, this is an added concern, right? He says on Shabbat, you can't go to your office, right? If you have, now many of us have home offices or something like that, you can't go and start looking around on your papers, on your desk, and things like that. What's going to happen, right? If I go to my desk and I see, oh, look at it, here's the sales report from the week, right? Well, what am I doing, right? I'm working on Shabbat, right? The computer's right there. Once I look at this, you go through it so many days a week. It's so natural to you. If you continue to, if you hang around there, it's a problem. So therefore, if we have, and I think this is an important idea, is what I call the Friday afternoon setup, right? To take our house, and the truth is now it's more important than ever because we're spending so much time in our house doing our weekday things, to make sure you do the things that are going to keep Shabbat a different day. So, for me, I have a whole routine of what I do. I wear one of these watches that record everything. I take the watch off. I have a Shabbat watch. I have my schoolwork out, and I make sure I take everything, I pile it up, and I put it away. I don't want to be looking at what grades the kid got and what teachers we need to hire and anything like that. I don't want to look at it on Shabbat, right? And so on. So it's important for us, the same thing. So listen, if I have a room that's an office, that's where I work, and like it's known it's my home office, get out, lock the door, and don't go in on Shabbat. That's easy. But a lot of times that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, you're working out of your living room, kitchen, dining room, something like that. Take all the stuff, put it away, right? And of course, I mean, for those of us that work in the city, although Neil, I know Neil works in Brooklyn now, right? So Neil, you can't go to the office in Brooklyn on Shabbat.
Shucks, you just killed it for me.
I'm sorry. I know that was one of the big perks, right? All you have to do is go to Kings Highway and East 15th, and you'd be all right. But you can't do that on Shabbat, because even if you're not writing or turning on the phone or anything like that, but you're, as we've said before, on Shabbat, you need to be in a different mental place, right? You need to detach from the work that you do, and by being around your office, your store, right? If you have a store, you can't walk into the store and walk around, right? What's going to happen if you walk into the store, right? There's no way that you're not going to say, oh wait, let me move that merchandise over. Hey, how many items are in this pile? Do we have to reorder something? There's no way. I mean, it's just natural and normal, and so therefore you can't be in your place of work, because that's going to just lead to doing work on Shabbat, and we don't want to be doing that. Okay, so that really gets to the end of this concept that we've been talking about, which is the garden, the planting, the growing things. And again, as we've said, it's not so relevant to us because we're not farmers, we're not in agriculture, right? And we don't even have, not only are we not, like, how many of us have ever even seen anything in America that's like really, truly agriculture? I mean, I guess in Jersey you could see it, if you go apple picking or whatever, but we don't know from farms and produce and things like that. It's just not our way of life. It's not our scope. But in Israel, there's definitely places that you go that's what they do, and I guess in America too, but you're not in the places where we'll generally populate. You got to go to Iowa, Nebraska, and so on and so forth for really more of that kind of living. But as we've seen, even though the direct major things that are there don't apply to us, as is often the case on the laws of Shabbat, the extended things tend to come our way. And they, as we've talked about in the last thing, sometimes it's not only the actual thing that you're not allowed to do, but like kind of transferring it to the commerce type of living that we are, offices and stores and things like that. So we can transfer the idea and think about what how those laws mean to us. Tomorrow, or Monday, I'll say, we're going to start with a very, very fundamental and important part of the laws of Shabbat. So I'm not even going to begin with it today. And that is the laws of baking and cooking and so on and so forth. This is a very, very significant area of halakha, very practical, very important. It applies to all of us because on the one hand, we're not allowed to cook on Shabbat, as we're going to see. On the other hand, we know a major part of Shabbat is eating, right? And eating good foods. So how does all that come about? What are the things that are forbidden? What are the things that are allowed? How do we do the things that we need to do, and so on? That's all going to be the topic of the next week or two of conversations that we'll have. So that should be interesting and exciting. So with that, I'm going to stop for today.
Rabbi, can I ask you a question?
Please, yeah.
Just to be clear, because I came a little late maybe when you were talking about it.
Sure, go ahead.
If I open up by my pool and deal, if I open up my umbrella on Friday a little, I could come on Saturday, sit by the pool and open the umbrella as if it's a regular day?
Yes, correct.
Wow.
It just needs to be like, it just can't be like, you know how like when it's sometimes they have the strap around it to make it completely cooked.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. If you open that strap and then open the umbrella, it's a problem. But if you have an umbrella that's open just a little bit, like most of the umbrellas, even if you don't open it, like if you just leave it closed, it's going to open that little bit because it just has to open the width of my fist, which is 3-4 inches, which is it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So
then
if you
that ain't opening up as if it's a regular day.
Yes. So perhaps as part of your Friday preparations for Shabbat, you could walk around outside around the pool and see that you or someone who's lives by you or works for you could walk around and just look at the umbrellas and make sure they're not sealed closed. Make sure that they're open just a little bit. And the same thing for any awning that you have or anything like that. Because those are nice. Also, I know in Deal a lot of people have the the awnings and or the pergola. Those are nice things to sit under, and they're great, and you can do it, but you just have to have just a tefach open, and then you're able to open it further.
And the housekeeper can't start it on Saturday and me finish it, right?
Right, shouldn't be. Now, if she does it on her own without thinking, without anyone asking and whatever, then it's not a problem. But if you're telling her to do that, then that is a problem. So again, we've created an easy way to make it work, or relatively easy way. So that's the best thing to do. If she opens it and if it's her habit every day to get up and open the thing, so then you could do that, and that's fine. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi.
We're going to
Shabbat
stop
shalom,
here for the
everybody.
class. We're going to start the Tefillah in 2 minutes. We're going to start the
Shabbat
Tefillah.
shalom.